Good day, folks. I'd like to do a part 2 of my last video, which was the magnetic gravity generator here. For some reason, it sparked a lot of interest and a lot of comments, and a lot of them, unfortunately, I was very disappointed because they were very, let's say, to keep things friendly, very dozy comments. I actually had to delete a lot of them because it just didn't make any sense. And it seems like, I don't know, a mix of the trolls and some people who legitimately don't understand, but it always falls down to the same thing right away. They make the same defense that, it's over unity and you can't create more energy in the system than what you put in, therefore it's all BS next. And they think they've made a great debunked revelation, you know, they made a favor to the world for pointing that out. But these people absolutely don't understand over unity in the term of an open system, specifically in the Tom Bearden terms and the Bedini and others who walk in that direction. So instead of repeating myself, you know, when I make new videos, I get right down to the point because I already have videos, basically what is over unity, the understanding true potential, the one wire system, and on and on. And I'm actually going to put some links, you know, at the bottom of the comments of this video so people can get to the original topic. So next time somebody says, you know, oh, this is not over unity, they do not understand what over unity is. And instead of making a new video every week, an hour long, explaining it, I'm just going to link to the one video where I already do a pretty good job at explaining it. So with that said, you know, I deleted those comments. And another good one was, which I thought was a bit kind of silly, was, you know, some people were hinting in the direction that, oh, the pendulum setup is so simple, you know, so simple that everybody would be doing it. There must be something wrong because, you know, you must have something wrong because it's just too simple, you know, try again, thanks though, basically. But you know what, folks, it's not my job to prove to you that this concept works, because not only have I seen it in person when I was younger at the Science Center, but I've seen it at multiple times, different variations, which I've talked about in the previous video. And now, of course, thanks to some comments, people gave me new YouTube videos of people with their own variations of this system. So yes, it's not my job to prove to you, and there were comments saying flat out this doesn't work, I'm an expert in free energy systems and I've tried all variations, this doesn't work. Folks, this will work in the very simple concept here, and I'm just going to try and do some refreshments here, and maybe all we need is to guide the people in the right direction, and then you'll understand. So with that said, let's try and replicate some of what we were talking about the other day. So here's the basic one I started with, which would have a pretty well a hard lever here, and that's basically a pendulum, and we can have a weight on there to make it more efficient, and our magnet. And what we do is we pull on this, like I was explaining, very little force required to do this. This is about the size of, you know, about 4 feet, you know. So you pull this up, very easy to do, and then you just drop it and the magnet will swing back and forth and back and forth, and it will, the oscillations every time will get less and less and less, and then just stable there. But when you have a pickup coil here, and in the demonstration that I saw with the light bulb, the 100 light bulb went pretty brightly every time the magnet swiped across. Now people were accusing, some of the comments were really wacko because they were telling me, another one I had to delete because it made no sense. They obviously don't understand the concept of unity, or I don't think they even bothered reading their own comment. They said, oh yeah, well, it's true, it takes very little force to bring it up and you drop it, but this is not over unity in the sense that the system is going to, because of drag and everything else, is going to quickly stabilize, and you're going to need to pull it again and do it. Therefore, it's not perpetual. This is not going to work. Obviously, the person has no clue what we're talking about, and if this person is watching, I would recommend to watch the links about the introduction to over-unity, what that means and what our concepts are, what the open loop system is versus what the closed loop system, and you'll be all caught up and you'll understand what I'm talking about here. Now, what's great about the system in Tom Bearden terms, and a lot of people have a hard time understanding because it sounds very complicated, he talks about asymmetrical regauging and breaking the loop, right? Now, in his examples and in the Bedini system, especially salt state, we're mostly doing it on the electrical part of things, but there's no specific rules that say you can't do it mechanically as well. And a good example with that is the Howard Johnson magnetic motors. You know, at one point he had, and Tom Bearden played with it in his kitchen, a circular thing here. And he had all his magnets and an S arrangement. He cut them just right. So he had this all along the wheel here. And then he had his track along here and then his magnets. And then this thing here, you'd start it, you'd give it a tap and it would just keep going and going and going. Because between the magnets on the device and all around here, what he does is it's a mechanical way of changing that spike and offering an asymmetrical regauge right at the right position so that when the magnet, it gets that equivalent of that sharp pulse, and it goes to the next, it gets that sharp pulse. And yes, you're not breaking the rules of thermodynamics here, yet you have a what would appear to be perpetual motion. But you have to understand the asymmetrical regauging and breaking the loop of the traditional closed circuit. So by doing that, right here, we've got our pendulum here, we've got our magnet, and this is, folks, in simple terms, as some people were wondering and thought this might not be good because it's so simple, you bring this up here and you drop it, and this swings back and forth here. This is by design, folks, already a broken symmetry system. And it fits perfectly in the Tom Bearden criteria of breaking the symmetry, but in this case, folks, it's simplified because it's by design. And what I mean here is we don't have pickup coils all the way here, all the way down. If we had a pickup coils equal on each side so that when we brought it here and then it went down like this and down like that, then we would have a symmetrical system. And it wouldn't be very long, you know, with all the drag here, I'm not even sure if it would even be able to do one rotation. But the reason this thing can go up and down a few times is because we're mechanically breaking the symmetry in Tom Bearden terms here. Because our pickup coil is just right here when there's this brief interaction. Meanwhile, there's this motion here and this motion there. And of course, it's going to eventually dampen itself out unless you re-trigger it after a few moments. But the point is, you don't have all this drag over here, additionally affecting with the natural drag the system already has in the environment, you see? So we're regauging it right here is where we're getting an input charge running the light bulb here. But it's broken, it's asymmetrical, it's just at a moment when this comes here. And depending on how we make the coils, folks, there's no such thing as 100% efficiency in transfer of energy. And that's the point here. If this would be actually 100% efficient between the coupling coil and the light bulb here, the moment the magnet would hit, it would go flonk, dead stop, bong, you know? But because it's not, it's to our advantage in this system that we only tap a portion, a little amount of that, and it's not, even though it does create a small drag, it's not enough to kill it on the first time. You'll get a few swings, and whether you do it manually or mechanically or electrically, as long as there's something to reset it momentarily, you'll get that back and forth swing here, okay? Now, another funny comment was, oh, well, sure, you'll get, quote-unquote, more energy and electricity than physical work you had to put into it to bring it up there and drop it and watch it go back and forth. But, oh, it's not enough to keep it going because, you know what? It's amps a second. It's just a sudden spike. Folks, everyone who's been watching me for a while now, this is what we're looking for. This is what we want. We want a spike. We want amps a second. So whether that comes from a capacitor or a mechanical device, as long as we have amps a second, folks, coming into us, we could use that to charge real capacitors with and discharge those and convert that back to real current, folks. This is what we want. We want to generate amps a second for very minimal drag at the input trigger and have a symmetry. We break the symmetry for the input and the output. So on each side of the circuit, you want to break the symmetry, and this device here, the pendulum, the basic one here, already offers these systems by design. So it does prove the point, as I was saying the other day, but as a manual human device, it gets tedious. But if you're going to sit there and nurse it, 3 hours of this and you'll charge a 12-volt battery, with very minimal work. So the concept works, but the practicality of that on its own is very, it's a very great demonstration, folks, because it shows you all of the Tom Bearden concepts, even in the more simplified version than what the Bedini devices do, even though they essentially tap into the same forms of energy interactions here. Now, another version of this is what I was talking about, which apparently works because some people send me links of videos in the comments already of the random mode one, where I was talking about replace this with a string here and just hang the magnet on there and have a base here and have some random magnets and coils around here, and whenever you start the motion, this will swivel in chaotic random motion, and this works pretty good, and the same effect here will light up a light. Now, as another crazy comment that I got, some people tried to dismiss this and said, you know what, what's the point? Because you're eventually going to stop even the chaotic movement here, because what happens is you're still offering a closed loop system here. The light bulb is a load or whatever, the battery, the capacitor. So whenever the magnets interact with the energizing or charging coils, the tapping coils, are going to create a significant drag, and this will just not work. Well, obviously, folks, even though there's a drag, the chaotic movement makes up for that. For a while, anyways, maybe a minute or so. And then even with magnets in the random order, folks, you're going to have these random N and S points, and then you've got what they call the Botch walls here, which will be quite random and chaotic. Now, even with your magnet here, at a certain point, it might hit a spot where it's a neutral zone, essentially, where even if you pulse it, it's not going to interact back. So that could be an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, but there will come a time where even in the chaotic movement with a trigger that you're going to, unless you give it another little tug to remove it, but a more advanced system, folks, ways around that. You can have unique coils on the magnet or on one side, thicker windings, where when that happens, you give it like a boost trigger, poof, and it'll give it a strong field, and then the motion starts again. And of course, people caught on and said you could use the environment as well. Actually, the famous John Hutchinson offered a very, very clever idea where he said put a sort of flap here for the wind, so as long as you have a brief current of wind, it doesn't even have to be continuous, as long as it swivels here and there once in a while, keeps the chaotic movement going, and you got yourself a steady source of energy generation. Perfect, John. Exactly in the line of what I think about by trying to use existing systems. There's somebody that understands, folks, what I mean by we want to use the environment, and over unity in the sense of more that we have to put in electrically comes from somewhere, and we find clever ways of interacting and manipulating those energy systems in efficient means that we could work in a non-symmetrical broken symmetry system, which allows us to do that. Because we're not equal symmetry, those rules of equal opposing forces go out the window now. So all these people that talk about energy in, energy out, they don't count for all the additional systems and interactions that we're dealing with here. So with that said, folks, which I'm surprised nobody caught on. I didn't want to talk about this originally because, you know, the video would go on for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours here. But those who have been following me, who understand, I've been introducing the one-wire system, which is the heavy side component, a completely disregarded and forgotten, but very well there. It's in the original Maxwell equations. And I even made a calculator for it that people can download. It's a little Python application that gives you the equivalent, and it's in a field as a field strength in watts per meter. So it's a very potent field-like component that's present in anything that's got an electromagnetic field to it. So what's very interesting of the heavy side component, folks, is this solves the problem, and not so much a mystery because the Maxwell original equations allow for us to do it, but not in the revised ones. So what this does, folks, is let's say we have 150,000 volts, very pure potential, but very low current. The heavy side component essentially converts the pure potentials back into a current as a field that we can tap into. So it gives us an actual opportunity to take the pure potential and convert that to real usable energy, folks, which is a key a factor that a lot of people in the over-unity research community are striving to achieve, and the heavy side is the key to that. And there's nothing that this tells us, folks, that in a setup like this, the random motion pendulum, let's say with the random magnetic base and the pickup coils here. See, we have all these pickup coils in this confined space as the magnet will swivel around here. So I'm sorry, my video clipped, I lost battery, but what I was getting at here, I'm going to try and bring it closer to what I was, is using the heavy side here. You use multiple coils. And as some people were commenting, saying, oh, this is no good, you're closing the loop, you're going to offer more drag, you can eliminate that with the one-wire system. So use your AV diode plugs on this, and there you go, you eliminate the drag, no more drag. And you could use this to charge with the heavy side capacitors, which will charge your batteries, which you could use your inverter and run your PC, whatever, off of this. Plus, you know, if you feel like it, you could have other regular coils, closed loop, but not all of them, with real 12 volts rectified. And if you place the coils right, the key is, because it's asymmetrical, it's not so bad. It's not like you've got a circular generator here, folks, and you've got coils all around here. So it doesn't matter where the motion is, you've got that equal force along the whole path here. This is not the same device when it swivels like this and you only have a certain very sharp area where the pickup coils are, and it's even less so depending on how you're going to design it. If you're going to use the heavy side, the one-wire system, to charge your capacitors and use that to dump whatever. Some people already mentioned transistor switches. I used a simplified cap dump approach, but there's several mechanisms that one could use to use this thing to collect just enough to trigger it for a while. But like I said, you know, there might be at random a time where you find a neutral zone that it might need some sort of external tap to fix that. But like John Hutchinson said in one of his comments, the flappy wind thing is a perfect way to give it that intermittent reset if it would need it. And this thing will continuously, you know, charge your 12-volt batteries. Very simple, easy mechanisms that, again, folks, I don't need to prove that it will work. The only thing I can say is I'm offering, and I'm not taking any credit, this has been going on for a while, it's just, you already got the broken symmetry. It just seemed logical to me to... Alright folks, so to summarize everything here, in short, there's many ways of making this work, and I know it already works, so I don't need to prove it. So what I offer is several methods of your potential asymmetrical regauging so that it could swivel for a while longer.
With that said, it's very ridiculous for the other comment about, oh, well, you're going to create drag. And if you could fix that by using the one-wire system as I described, or use a hybrid of both a closed and a one-wire system, perhaps for your trigger, and use a small closed loop for your battery. It doesn't matter. There's several methods, and as people, as described in some of the comments even of the first one, they've offered very creative ways to keep the trigger going. So that's not a problem between using the environment or external triggers or internal triggers. All I was trying to make the point of is this system offers a very unique and highly asymmetrical system to begin with, so may as well continue on with that since it already falls into the Tom Bearden perspectives, and offer your asymmetrical regauge, and you got yourself a system. A very simplified one, but one that should work. And of course, one comment, another one I had to delete was I was being accused of fraud because, well, if it was that easy, I would have built it and I would have been able to show it. Again, I've seen it work, the manual one anyways, which is quite efficient as it is. But the thing is, everyone knows that's been watching for a while. I only have a little apartment. I don't have a workshop. Even if I had a garage, it's not that hard. If you're a do-it-all, jack-of-all-trades person, by all means, find yourself a couple of 2x4s, build yourself a base, find yourself a couple of powerful magnets, perhaps a few weights, and start experimenting. It's not that difficult. The concept works. How you want to asymmetrically regauge it, that's completely up to you folks. So with that said, I hope that I shed some clearance and clarification in what I was trying to get at here. And have yourselves all a wonderful day.